Howdy y'all, Joe Hills here, recording as I always do in Nashville, Tennessee. I asked some of you guys to give suggestions for stuff you'd like me to talk about, and one of the best ones was Kuya SGA requested I talk a little bit about crushes. And this was kind of just a spin-off of a discussion we had. Somebody in the chat, I won't name names in case they, or, well, not really for their privacy, yeah, actually for their privacy. Not because I'm worried that they'll hear me say their name, but because I don't want to reveal it to their crush, in case their crush is watching this. Which, I don't know why someone's crush would watch my show, but I don't know why someone would watch my show. Just kidding, I know all these things. I'm great. That's why. Anyway, what was I doing? I was working on my vampire castle and talking about crushes. And, in particular, I can't really say too much about, like, the adult dating scene, because I've been married about 5 years, well, over 5 years now, because we just had our anniversary. So I don't know what to tell you about stuff like with workplaces or stuff like that. But I'm going to kind of briefly talk a little bit about stuff I learned dating in college and shortly thereafter. Because I met my wife pretty soon after graduating. So once again, don't have a ton of adult working world knowledge to contribute there. And I, dated some folks in high school and college, so I could share my hilarious mistakes and hopefully some aspirational small victories from here and there. But let's see. We're going to go ahead and work a little bit on the big cliff that I got to get going out front here, I think, today. So we've got plenty of smooth stone, and we're just going to rein this cliff in. We've got a pretty good kind of starting line for it here. But you know what? I think we're going to maybe come out this way some to figure out how we're going to deal with these towers, because I haven't worked that out quite yet. The logical thing to some degree might be, in the case of these, to simply lay down stone just straight up underneath. Like have the cliff come out further in this particular section, right? That kind of makes sense to me. Now, that means we got to clear these trees. But anyway, I can clear trees while talking about something else. I'm not a robot that has to do tasks perfectly in serial format. Actually, a lot of robots these days can do parallel tasks. Like your Roomba can vacuum while moving. It doesn't need to, like, move and then vacuum and then move and then vacuum. It's crazy what science has done. But anyway, enough talking about robot vacuums. So the general thrust of what I was talking about when Kuya suggested that this might make a good episode was that it's really easy when you meet somebody who, dang it, getting rid of this torch. When you meet somebody that's like really exciting to you, it's easy to be like, okay, I got to do all this stuff to impress them, like, and instinctively just be like, okay, what can I do? How can I impress this person? And that's going to vary from personality type to personality type, because for some people, their first instinct will be to hide. But I'm going to discourage you from doing that. That is not a helpful strategy, or even an especially viable one. Like, I don't know what your long-term goals are, other than possibly protecting yourself, but if your only goal is to protect yourself, the potential for invisibility, the potentia for invisibility. I've been playing too much Thaumcraft, dang it. The potential for invincibility lies in defense, but the potential for victory lies in offense. But we don't want to offend anybody or freak anybody out or creep anybody out either. So you got to kind of weigh a lot of various impulsive ideas. Like, part of you is going to be like, oh, I gotta go out of my way to impress this person. And then part of you is going to be like, I got to avoid this person. And then it's like, oh no, I gotta seek this person out. It's like all this stuff at once. And my comment that kind of got Kuya started thinking about me doing an episode on this was that I think it's helpful to try to channel the nervous energy of a crush into self-improvement. And the benefit of this is a combination of confidence and competence that can be incredibly valuable if you actually do end up, like, trying to date this person later. Now, the idea here is, like, if you are somebody who is generally good at things, you are more likely to be capable of participating in an adult or mature relationship. Now, not saying like, and like I said, I know this is focused on like crushes in college or whatever, or maybe high school, but like, what I mean is, if you're somebody who can deal with situations well and not make a fool of yourself, then that is going to be helpful for you in the long term in real life, and also, though, potentially make you more attractive as a potential partner to others. So kind of look at this as an opportunity to develop skills or to practice. I don't like the word virtues, but kind of like, if you're somebody who has a short temper, maybe practicing not acting on that temper would be a good use of the nervous energy that having a crush might give you. And I'm hearing a zombie somewhere, and it's freaking me out. There's got to be like a cave right down here. Well, where is it? I mean, in theory, I'm going to have to dig out a ton of this to build like catacombs and stuff. Whoa. Yep, found it. Okay. So that's good to know. We'll go ahead. Now that I don't feel like a crazy person, we'll leave that there. But yeah, just kind of thinking like, okay, what do you dislike about yourself? Where do you feel like you have let yourself down? Like, if you are aspiring to be some sort of, let's say for example that you want to be an artist, and you're in high school, you can't really be a professional artist yet, in most cases at this point. Like, realistically, that's just not something that's available to you. But, like, if you are interested in pursuing a career in art, the more that you create and do to demonstrate that you understand the effort and the discipline required to move forward in that field, the less of, like, a, like, weird, like, wannabe you'll seem like, and the more like a soon-to-be. And once again, this is not necessarily going to help you with any one particular person you have a crush on. This is not a strategy for, like, how to get this girl or that girl. Like, I don't know, in general, seem like an interesting person. Try harder to get better at being a better and more interesting person. And be somebody who is capable of dealing with surprises, like just general life skills and competencies will go really far, it turns out. Now, once again, this is actually kind of one of those things like, it'll go really far, I should qualify that, in not necessarily winning over a particular crush, but with being in a relationship should you manage to achieve one with this crush. Because if you feel so strongly about this person that you're freaking out this much, you probably want to be ready for success, right? Like, if you ask them out and then your dates go poorly because, all you do is talk about yourself. If that's one of your problems, that you talk about yourself too much, use, once again, that nervous energy from the crush to think about, how can I do this better? What can I learn about that would make me a more interesting person? And once again, this is all really good use of your time, because even if nothing ever happens with this person, you haven't, like, wasted your life by being better at pursuing your own goals, or by avoiding, like, the sorts of mistakes that you would have in any relationship with any person. Like, the old example on The Secret World of Alex Mack was that Alex's sister liked this guy who was really into cars, and so her sister was trying to learn a bunch of stuff about cars, and they're like, no, he should like you for you, and whatever. And this is kind of a weird case, because, I would say, okay, well, it's, not ideal if you are, like, redefining your identity around this person's identity. So she's just like, okay, this guy is really into cars, so I've got to learn about cars so he'll be interested in me. It's like, well, okay. Like, him being interested in cars and him being interested in you, like, sometimes people want different things from their hobbies than from their relationships. Like, but putting that aside, it's just like, okay, well, worst case, she has, like, learned a little bit about cars, which is a helpful thing to know about in the real world. But, like, let's say that this guy was into, like, really terrible music, and she was just like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna change my entire, like, look of what I wear to, like, look like one of the band members from this band. That would be creepier and weirder, and definitely a no-no. But, like, I don't know. Learning about things that the people you date or are interested in is good in some cases, but, like, don't take it too far. Well, and I guess part of it, too, though, is, like, would learning this stuff make me a more interesting conversationalist or better friend in general? Like, it doesn't hurt to know a little bit about how cars work, but if you were literally just, like, memorizing facts about baseball because the guy you like is really into baseball, that's gonna seem kind of desperate and creepy, and not at all like what you're going for. So, anyway, it's just kind of one of those things where, put your energy into self-improvement, into demonstrating that you're somebody that can achieve their own goals, and, like, a lot of people don't want to have to worry about somebody else in a relationship. Like, in that, like, they have something that they want to do with their life, and they want to be in a relationship with somebody who also has something they want to do with their life and is capable of doing it, right? So, if you're somebody who his, like, identity is that he wants to be a musician, but you never actually practice, you're like, one day I'm going to have a band, but, I can't afford good instruments yet, and I can't do this or I can't do that. Like, that's just going to make you seem like a bad person to be in a relationship with, because your inevitable disappointment will be something that person will have to help you manage if that relationship goes on very long. And that's extra work. That's a distraction. Like, you need to kind of sort out what your own deal is, what your situation is, what you're trying to achieve in a meaningful way. And, like, none of this has to be set in stone. I say as I literally set stones. If you say, okay, well, I want to have a band someday, so I'm going to go so I'm going to practice an instrument for 3 hours a night. That's not a bad thing to do. You can get a lot out of life by being able to play an instrument that other people can't. But where this becomes problematic is if you're doing it at the expense of everything else. Because, like, and once again, these are just general life skills. I guess my dating advice is seem like a competent person because it will make you more confident. Like, if you are just putting all your eggs in this music basket, if you are, like, not going to, if you're skipping class and you're going to be a successful musician one day, well, that's great. Maybe you didn't need to go to class. But if you're skipping class and you're not already, like, who's somebody who's, I'm sure that, like, there are musicians who don't go to class, right? There are people like, whatever, Hannah Mountain, Michigan. Like, Hannah, Michigan or whatever, doesn't need to go to class. She can have a private tutor and skip school or whatever all the time. But she's already got, like, a record contract. And so if you don't already have a record contract, but you are living outside of your means in terms of your dreams, that's going to seem really kind of like a red flag, If you want to be a writer, you should probably be writing something, just because that way, even if it's not good yet, even if you're not a good musician yet or a good writer yet, it's reassuring to people who get into relationships with people that they won't have to be there to help you when you certainly fail. Now, everyone has the possibility of failure, but, like, if you're just, like, clearly blowing off the actual work required to be good at something while claiming that's your future, you're gonna have a bad time on the dating scene, you know? Like, okay, so it's cool now, but, you know, that you blow off class or whatever, but, like, when you don't have a high school degree and you're still trying to get your band off the ground at, like, 35, that's really bad, right? So look at John Hamm, okay? He is a famous actor. He was in the show Mad Men on the AMC, and he did not get his first real acting role, which was as Don Draper in Mad Men, until he was in his 30s. But he still, like, was self-sufficient in the meantime. He had gone to school, he had a job delivering food, which is not a great job, but it is a job that people do to live. Like, if you can't go to class while practicing your music now, how are you going to have some sort of job to support your dream and possibly your family later? Like, I don't know. And once again, this is all stuff that's maybe too long-term focused, but I guess that's kind of my point, is that, like, if you focus on being a better person in the long term, you're going to be more attractive in general to people that you meet and more interesting to people that you meet, because I bet you're going to have some stories from pursuing whatever you're trying to pursue. And that's good. Stories are good. People like stories. Tell those, you know? If you're just I don't know. But, and once again, this is not dating advice for, hey, how to meet the perfect person. It's how to be ready when you meet someone that you could be very happy with, which is unhelpful in terms of maybe this initial crush or whatever. But, you know, over the course of your school years, you're going to have a lot of crushes, and you're going to have a lot of opportunities and incentives to better yourself. And I think that, you know, it's a waste to just spend that energy being disappointed or wondering why they won't notice you or what have you. You got to just, like, it's like, here's a bunch of free hormones and energy. Go do something useful with it, you know? It's like somebody's handing you $20 bills worth of energy all the time. Don't just throw those away. Invest them. So, anyway, I don't know. This is just something I think about, because if I hadn't, like, my wife is a remarkably competent person who's, like, studying, she's getting her PhD in biophysics, and there are a lot of people who want to be creative people like me, and I'm not self-supporting myself with this YouTube thing or with my webcomics at this point as much as I wish I was, but the fact that, like, I was working at it and I had a plan and things like that, it definitely helped me not look like just some crazy person who was going to mooch off her all my life, you know? Like, and I don't know. So, just something to note. You should have your own stuff figured out. Because, like, I know her family was definitely dubious about my expected career trajectory in webcomics when we first met. And the fact that, you know, she could say, well, he's been wanting to do this for, you know, well, let's see, how long had I been in comics? It's like, well, he's been wanting to do this for years. He has been doing this for years. He has established an audience, and he has a day job that he has no plans to quit, you know, until this is financially viable. Like, it helped, you know. If I'd just, I don't know, been living with my parents, thinking about making something, that wouldn't have flown, you know. As much as she liked me, I'm pretty sure cooler heads would have prevailed and been like, yeah, this person will ruin your life. You have too much going for you. Don't waste it with him. So, once again, this is just playing a long game. You wanna be the best person you can, and crushes are definitely one source of fuel for that. So, I don't really have a conclusion to this episode. I've just been kind of working on this cliff. I guess we can go look at it. Hopefully it looks better than it did. Hopefully we don't get creepered as we run over here. Oh, a skeleton. Great. So let's go over this way, away from the skeleton and toward a creeper. Well, there's definitely parts of this that could still use improvement. Let me go ahead and actually do some of that real quick. Now, I don't want to get into, like, particulars about particular relationships I've been in, because that's kind of out of scope of this, but I will say that just in general, one trend I noticed about the relationships that caused me the most unhappiness and really just wasted everybody's time who was involved, mine and the person I was dating, it was very notable that we were both kind of figuring ourselves out, and so we didn't really communicate well to the other person who we were because we didn't really know who we were yet. And I think that that idea really strongly influenced a lot of what I've said so far, just knowing that those sorts of misunderstandings can lead to a lot of wasted time in relationships. The more that you can go out there and try to become who you want to become, the less likely you are to be in a situation where you are misrepresenting yourself, even innocently, or where that person is misrepresenting themselves, because I've just noticed that, in general, more mature people and more put-together people tend to kind of end up in the same circles. Like, or maybe that's not entirely true, but like, you can kind of, as you start to learn what does and doesn't work, you'll kind of, maybe you just don't end up pursuing a relationship initially because you realize from the start that it wouldn't make sense, rather than trying it out to see what happens and then realizing, like, oh, it's the same thing as last time. It's the same thing as every time. I don't know. But yeah, you can't do well in a relationship if you don't know who you are and who you want to be, and those don't necessarily need to be in perfect alignment, you know? What I'm trying to achieve or accomplish or be in life is definitely not something that I've accomplished already or been already. And the same is true for my wife, but we know enough about kind of our trajectories and about how we have grown as people on our own individually to know that we could continue to grow mutually and individually together without it being a problem. Like, there are some relationships where one person starts to grow and develop and the other person panics because they're like, oh no, this person is growing out of the relationship. They're not going to want to be with me when they're like this. But it's like, well, if you're both growing and developing, you don't have that problem as long as you're kind of heading toward things that complement each other. Not necessarily are the same, but complement each other. And it's just, I don't know, something to think about. You know, and and you don't have to have like a worksheet where you fill out like, what do I want out of life? How am I going to get it? You don't have to have all these things answered right now because these things are going to change. But you need to practice being able to handle them, I guess, so that when you do figure out what you want in life, you're already set up to head toward it. So, anyway, let's just go ahead. I don't want to completely enclose this part of the cliff because I really like this ladder access here, and I don't want to ruin that for the time being. I also need to get all these cows out of here eventually, and that's probably going to be the way I do it. So why don't we just head over this way so that we can actually see what we are looking at. And back up here a little bit. We'll eventually have like a drawbridge that connects here and deepen this cliff. Yeah, this tree's got to go. Sorry, tree. There's no place for you in our hearts or along our horizon. It'd be nice, like, poetically, if I took the saplings from that tree to build the drawbridge. But I don't think I'm gonna. Like, it's almost too sappy. Also, I don't know if that's kind of what I want to use. But it's nice to have options. So, there we go. we've got our cliff here along the front wall. We're going to have to probably deepen this valley significantly and cut out all the rest of these trees. But it's not a bad place to start. And it's not a bad place to stop for this episode either. So, anyway, until next time, y'all, this is Joe Hills from Nashville, Tennessee. Keep adventuring.